My name is Silas Dorn, 58 years old, builder, husband, and fool. For 25 years, I believed my marriage to Evelyn Graves was unshakably a partnership forged in hard work and loyalty. I built our company with my bare hands, laid every brick of the life we shared. Until one quiet afternoon shattered it all. I was driving past my son-in-law's house Calder Voss, a lawyer I once trusted like family when I saw it. Evelyn's silver Lexus, parked boldly at his gate. It should have been in our garage. My pulse spiked with a feeling I couldn't name. I stepped out of my truck and walked closer, careful, silent. Through the half-closed curtains, I saw movement: her hair, his hands. Then the truth hit me like a wrecking ball. They weren't discussing legal files. They were together in the most intimate way imaginable. And in that moment, something inside me died and something colder was born. I froze where I stood, half hidden by the oak tree near the window, afraid to breathe, afraid to believe what my eyes were showing me. Inside, Evelyn moved like a woman I didn't recognize, her laugh softer, her voice a whisper of seduction. Calder's hands traced the curve of her back as if she belonged to him. For 25 years, those gestures had been mine. A noise escaped mesomething between a gasp and a groan, and I clamped my hand over my mouth. I should have turned away, should have walked back to my truck and driven until the memory blurred into nothing. But I couldn't. My feet felt nailed to the ground. The air was sharp with betrayal, and I was drowning in it. Through that narrow slit in the curtain, I saw the truth stripped bare, my wife and my daughter's husband locked in an embrace so intimate, so wrong, that time itself seemed to stop. The same woman who had kissed me goodbye that morning, saying she had a lunch meeting downtown, was here in our daughter's home entangled with him. 1,000 memories flooded me all at once: her laughter at our anniversary dinner last December, the way she'd asked me to trust her when I noticed her late-night texts, the perfume that lingered on her coat when she came home too late to explain. Every doubt I'd ever buried now screamed in my ears. My hands trembled. I fumbled for my phone, not to record, not yet, but simply to remind myself this was real. The reflection in the glass caught my face, pale, hollow-eyed, a man staring at the death of everything he believed in. Then I heard Evelyn's voice, soft but clear through the cracked window. "He's too busy to notice anything, Calder. Silas still thinks I'm his perfect wife." A low, smug laugh from Calder followed. "And you play the part beautifully." The words carved themselves into my bones. I felt something snap inside, not anger yet, not even grief. Just the unbearable weight of realization. I stumbled backward, the gravel crunching under my boots. The sound was louder than I intended. Inside, they both froze. Evelyn lifted her head. For a split second, our eyes almost met through the curtain. I ducked behind the tree, heart hammering so loud I thought they could hear it. "Did you hear that?" Calder's voice cut through the stillness. "Probably just the wind," she whispered, though her tone wavered. When the silence returned, I ran quietly, clumsily my truck. My chest ached like it was splitting open. I gripped the steering wheel and stared at the house. The blinds shifted once more, and I saw Evelyn's silhouette standing near the window, cautious, scanning the yard. I ducked lower in my seat. For a moment, I wanted her to see me, to know I knew, to watch her face collapse under the weight of shame. But shame requires a soul. Evelyn had buried hers long ago. As I started the engine, the thought hit me: my daughter, Arden, had married this man. The same man now betraying her father with her own mother. What kind of world was this, where betrayal could wear the face of family? I drove off slowly, my reflection in the windshield ghostly pale. The neighborhood blurred past me in streaks of sunlight and disbelief. My mind repeated her words on a loop: "He's too busy to notice anything." But she was wrong. I noticed. And from that moment forward, I would notice everything. When I got home that afternoon, the house didn't look the same. The air was still, but not peaceful. It was hollow, like someone had opened a door and let all the warmth leak out. Every frame on the wall, every photograph of Evelyn and me smiling through the years, felt staged. I used to see those moments as proof of love. Now I saw them for what they really were, props in a 25-year performance. The living room clock ticked too loudly. The hum of the refrigerator felt intrusive. I stood in the doorway, staring at the kitchen table where Evelyn and I had once shared morning coffee and late-night laughter. How many of those moments had been genuine? How many had been rehearsed? I sank into the old leather armchair, the one she always said didn't match her decorating style, and stared at the family portrait above the fireplace. Evelyn's smile there was perfect, measured, composed, camera-ready. And mine was the smile of a man proud of what he'd built, never realizing the foundation beneath it was already cracking. My mind wandered back to the beginning. I'd met Evelyn in 1996 at a company banquet. I was 32 then, ambitious, hardworking, and lonely in the way only successful men can be. She was 24, beautiful, bright, with that kind of effortless charm that drew every eye in the room. She laughed at my awkward jokes, touched my arm when she spoke, and I, God help me, mistook that attention for affection. We were married within a year. Our daughter, Arden, came 2 years later, and for a long time, that seemed like enough. Evelyn was a wonderful mother, at least she appeared to be. She organized birthday parties with impossible themes, filled photo albums with smiling faces, and insisted that I never miss a school recital. I believed that was love. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Maybe it started the first time she said, "We deserve more, Silas." Maybe it was the new car she bought without asking, the vacation she insisted on taking even when business was tight, the subtle way her compliments turned into criticisms. I remembered the night she first met Calder Voss, Arden's future husband. It was at a dinner party we hosted for Arden's engagement. Evelyn had worn a silver dress that caught the light like moon water. Calder couldn't take his eyes off her. I saw it then, the flicker of attraction, but I dismissed it as imagination. A proud mother, a charming son-in-law, what harm could there be? Now, every detail of that night replayed in brutal clarity. The way she laughed too easily at his jokes. The lingering touch on his arm. How she leaned in when he spoke, her eyes glimmering in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It wasn't imagination. It was the start of a sickness that had spread silently through the walls of our family. I opened one of our old photo albums. There we were, Evelyn and me, on our 10th anniversary cruise, smiling at the camera, glasses raised in a toast. I remembered the photographer asking for a look of love. Evelyn had turned to me, eyes shining, and whispered, "You'll always be my one and only." I closed the album so hard the spine cracked. That sentence echoed now like mockery. Maybe she had loved me once. Maybe not. But whatever we'd built together, whatever life I thought we shared, had turned into something else, a facade maintained out of convenience, greed, or boredom. The clock struck 5. Evelyn would be home soon, pretending nothing had changed, pretending she hadn't betrayed everything we ever were. And I would sit across from her at dinner, pretending I didn't know. But inside, I was already planning the moment I'd stop pretending. Dinner that night was a masquerade. Evelyn sat across from me, her hair pinned neatly, her tone soft and casual, too casual. She talked about a new charity gala, about our daughter Arden, about a designer friend who was simply dying to redo our kitchen. I watched her the way a hunter studies a fox, every gesture, every inflection. Her smile was polished. Her laugh rehearsed. Her hands never trembled. But mine did, beneath the table, hidden in my lap. I nodded when I was supposed to, said, "That sounds nice," when required, but in my mind I was elsewhere. Behind her words, I could still hear Calder's voice from earlier that day. The echo of his smug laugh haunted me. "He's too busy to notice anything." When she excused herself to take a call, stepping into the hallway with her wine glass in hand, he followed quietly, barefoot on the hardwood floor. Her voice drifted through the half-closed office door. "Yes, same place tomorrow. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. I told you, Calder, he's buried in work as always." The name landed like a nail in my chest. Calder. So this wasn't a single mistake. It was an affair. An ongoing one. I slipped back into the dining room before she returned. By the time she reappeared, all smiles and apologies, I had already made up my mind. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I listened to her slow, steady breathing and wondered how many times she had pretended this same rhythm after coming from his bed. At some point, my chest stopped aching. The pain curdled into focus. The next morning, I drove to the office early but not to work. I pulled out old account statements, property ledgers, and Evelyn's credit card reports. As the company's founder, I had access to every financial corner of our household. At first, everything looked normal. Then I saw repeated transactions at a boutique hotel downtown, the Adler Inn, billed under conference catering. I'd never held a conference there in my life. Each payment matched the dates she'd claimed to have charity board meetings. I started marking them with a red pen, one by one. 7 weekends. Same location. Same price range. Always while I was out of town inspecting construction sites. By noon, I had called Gavin Roque, my longtime accountant and the closest thing I had to a brother. "Gavin," I said quietly, "I need you to trace something for me." Discreetly. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Send me the statements." Within hours, he called back, voice low and steady. "Silas, you might want to sit down. Evelyn's been transferring small sums into a secondary account under the name D. Voss, around 30,000 total." Calder's name. "Of course. She's not just cheating on you," Gavin continued. "She's funding him." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't speak. The rage that had been simmering began to cool into calculation. "Thank you, Gavin. Keep digging. And don't let a single word leave your office." That night, I came home to find Evelyn humming in the kitchen, wearing the same silk blouse she'd worn the first time I saw her. "Rough day?" she asked, smiling sweetly. "Just numbers," I said. "Always numbers." She kissed my cheek, a reflex more than affection, and turned back to her recipe. I caught a whiff of the same perfume I'd smelled on her that afternoon near Calder's house. I stood there for a moment, watching her stir the pot, realizing how many lies can fit inside a simple domestic scene. In the reflection of the kitchen window, our faces appeared side by side, hers calm, mine unreadable. "He's too busy to notice anything." The phrase echoed again, and I almost smiled. She was wrong. I noticed everything now. And for the first time in 25 years, Evelyn Graves had no idea who she was really married to. By the next morning, my anger had cooled into something sharper: strategy. Rage burns too fast, it consumes the man holding it. But control builds traps. Evelyn still moved through our house like a queen who believed her crown was secure. She kissed my cheek when I left for work, called me darling, and sent little text messages that would have melted me once: "Don't work too hard today." Now, I read them like coded messages from an enemy agent. At the office, I locked the door and called Noah Strickland, a private investigator I'd used years ago during a contract dispute. He'd always said, "People think they're clever until a camera tells the truth." "Noah," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I need quiet surveillance. No police, no noise." He paused. "Spouse?" "Yes," I answered. "And someone close to the family." He didn't ask for names, professionals never do. Within the hour, he texted a list of surveillance packages and equipment options. I chose the one labeled Ghost Protocol. Cameras disguised as motion sensors, a phone tap kit, and cloud-based recording. By sunset, Noah's technician had installed everything while Evelyn was at her committee dinner. That night, when she came home humming and smelling faintly of whiskey and perfume, I was in the living room pretending to read. She kissed me on the head like she always did and asked, "Did you eat?" "Yes," I said, eyes still on the newspaper. "How was your meeting?" "Productive," she replied smoothly. "Calder was there, too. You know him, always so committed to helping with donations." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Donations. When she went upstairs, I pulled up the hidden camera feed on my phone. The motion sensor in her office had recorded 20 minutes of footage, Evelyn sitting at her desk, smiling at her phone, whispering. Then she lifted her laptop, turned the webcam toward herself, and said softly, "Good night, my love. I wish you were here." She blew a kiss toward the screen. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. I transferred the footage to a secure drive. One clip wasn't enough. I needed a pattern, a full narrative. The kind a court would call irrefutable evidence. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah delivered. A trail of photos, Evelyn and Calder Voss entering the Adler Inn on Thursday afternoons, leaving 3 hours later. Phone records showing repeated calls to Calder's private line, always deleted afterward. One voice recording caught her saying, "Once he signs the refinancing papers, we'll be set. He never reads the fine print." That line stopped me cold. This wasn't only adultery, it was manipulation. Financial deceit. She was planning to strip me clean while sharing my bed. I sent the files to Gavin Roque, who analyzed the documents with forensic precision. "She's setting up a quiet transfer of company shares," Gavin told me. "Using her authority as co-signatory on your trust accounts." How much could she move? If you hadn't caught it, several million, easily. I thanked him and leaned back in my chair. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the sound of my empire humming around me. I had built everything, every wall, every contract, every success. Now my own wife was trying to dismantle it. But I wasn't helpless. I'd built foundations for a living. I knew how to reinforce them. The next morning, I acted like any other husband. I brewed coffee, asked about her weekend plans, even complimented her dress. She smiled, radiant as always. "You're in such a good mood," she said. "I just realized how lucky I am," I replied. And I meant it, because luck had given me time. That evening, when Evelyn left for another board meeting, I followed from a safe distance, headlights dimmed. She didn't drive to a restaurant or a conference center. She drove straight to Calder's house. I parked down the street, engine idling. Through his wide living room window, I saw her silhouette against the lamplight. Her coat slipped off her shoulders as Calder pulled her close. I hit record on my phone. The video was grainy but clear enough. Proof. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey, the same kind Calder liked to brag about. I watched the footage again and again, not out of pain, out of calculation. Every betrayal they offered me became a weapon in my arsenal. Every lie was another nail in their coffin. Before bed, I copied the recordings onto a hidden drive labeled Project E for Evelyn. And then, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. Tomorrow, I would start phase 2. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a master builder could do with a blueprint for revenge. I woke before dawn the next morning, long before Evelyn stirred. The sky outside was the color of ash, appropriate, I thought, because that's what my marriage had become, something once alive now reduced to gray dust. I brewed my own coffee and sat in my office with the blinds half drawn, watching the streetlights fade. It was time to stop collecting proof and start using it. I called Lawrence Huxley, president of First National and an old friend from the early days when I could barely afford a business loan. He answered on the second ring, his voice still thick with sleep. "Silas? You all right?" "I've never been clearer," I said. "I need a private meeting before noon. Nothing on record." By 10 o'clock I was sitting across from him in the same boardroom where I'd signed my first major construction deal 20 years ago. Lawrence listened without interrupting as I explained the situation in careful, sanitized terms, no mention of infidelity, only financial vulnerability and potential fraud. He nodded slowly. You want to lock her out? Completely. Every joint account, every credit line, every automatic transfer. I want manual authorization for everything that carries my signature. Lawrence leaned back. That's extreme, Silas. So is betrayal, I said evenly. Within 30 minutes, the paperwork was done. My name alone could access the company's operational funds. Evelyn's digital permissions were revoked, though the notice wouldn't reach her until the system refreshed at noon. I left the bank lighter, calmer. On the sidewalk, a breeze carried the scent of rain and freedom. By lunchtime, the strike landed. Evelyn was at the Riverside Country Club, having lunch with her friends, women who measured status by the brand of handbags on the table. Her first card declined when the waiter brought the check. She laughed it off, assuming it was a glitch, then tried another. Declined again. My phone buzzed at exactly 12:04 p.m. Silas, something's wrong, she said, breathless. The bank froze everything. I can't even pay for lunch. That's strange, I replied calmly. Probably a security update. You know how banks are. I'm embarrassed. Linda and Nancy are staring at me. Don't worry, dear. I'll call them right now. I ended the call and didn't call anyone. 10 minutes later, Calder Voss tried to log into the joint account Evelyn had secretly opened in his name. The bank flagged it, locked it, and issued an alert. My investigator Noah Strickland texted within minutes, "Your fox is trapped." By mid-afternoon, both of them were flailing. Evelyn left me a string of messages, confusion melting into anger. Why would you do this? I can't even buy gas. You're humiliating me, Silas. Each message was a symphony to my ears. Meanwhile, Gavin sent me the final audit of her transactions. The money she'd funneled to Calder was enough to trigger fraudulent transfer statutes under state law. It wasn't just immoral, Anna Marie, it was criminal. I drove to the construction site that afternoon, hard hat on, clipboard in hand. The smell of wet concrete grounded me. For years, I'd built things that lasted: bridges, towers, homes. Now I was dismantling something rotten, and it felt like construction in reverse. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was Noah, the investigator. Calder's been calling bank managers all afternoon, threatening lawsuits. He's panicking. Good, I said. Panic makes people sloppy. Keep watching him. When I returned home that evening, Evelyn was waiting on the porch. Her eyes were red, her expression desperate but still proud, the pride of someone who can't accept defeat. We need to talk, she said. About what? About this. She waved a handful of bank papers. Everything's frozen. They said you initiated a hold on all accounts. A precaution, I said lightly. Some irregularities came up. The accountants insisted. Irregularities? You think I'd steal from you? I think you've already taken plenty, Evelyn. Her lips parted, but no words came. I brushed past her into the house. The faint perfume on her neck was Calder's brand, imported, expensive, synthetic. That night, the fallout spread like wildfire. Noah called again just before midnight. Calder tried to access a client trust account today. It's under investigation by the state bar. He's cornered, Silas. Let him dig his own grave, I said. I poured myself another whiskey and opened my laptop. I saved the day's messages, the recordings, the photographs, every piece of evidence into a single encrypted file labeled Graves Project. As I worked, I realized something unexpected. I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity. The kind that comes only after the storm, when debris settles and the landscape finally shows what's real. I looked around my home office. Every piece of furniture, every framed award, every document in the drawers had a story of sweat and sacrifice. Evelyn had lived off my labor, smiled through my exhaustion, and used that trust as her camouflage. No more. Before bed, I sent one final message to Gavin. Transfer the primary trust to the corporate holding company. Mark all personal funds as pending audit. Send Evelyn's notifications to the legal team only. The next morning, the world would wake up exactly the same sunrise, traffic, birdsong, but my world had changed forever. Evelyn would find her wealth gone, Calder would find his name under investigation, and I would find peace in the simple fact that they never saw it coming. They thought I was a builder. They forgot builders understand how to demolish too. Monday dawned heavy and gray, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. I knew it would be the day everything broke open, the day masks fell and truth spoke louder than lies. By 9 a.m., the phone started ringing. Noah Strickland, my investigator, was first. Silas, it's happening. The State Bar Association just issued a formal notice to Calder Vosh's under review for trust fund violations and conflict of interest. Good, I said, my voice steady. Let the system do what it was made for. But the system wasn't my only weapon. I still had one last meeting to attend, a private sit-down at the First National Bank with Lawrence Huxley and my lawyer, Peter Holden. I arrived early, carrying a folder so thick it could have been mistaken for a corporate merger. Inside it were everything: photos, transaction records, recordings, and copies of my marriage documents. Peter flipped through them, his brow furrowed deeper with each page. This isn't just infidelity, he said finally. This is conspiracy, Silas. Fraud. They'll both face legal consequences if you push this. I don't want to destroy them, I replied. I want to stop pretending they can't destroy themselves. By the time I returned home that afternoon, the whispers had already started. Evelyn's friends from the country club, the same women she'd once bragged to about her perfect marriage, were calling to check on me. Polite, cautious, curious. The rumor mill was alive. When Evelyn's car pulled into the driveway around 5, I watched from the porch, calm and silent. She got out slowly, her usual poise replaced by something brittle. We need to talk, she said, voice cracking. We've done enough talking, I replied. She followed me inside anyway, heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood floor. In the living room, she turned to face me, the same room where we'd once danced barefoot on our anniversary. You're destroying our life, Silas, she said. You froze the accounts, the bank's questioning everything, and Calder. Calder what? I interrupted, coldly. Lost his job. His license. His dignity. Her mouth opened but no words came. She looked smaller now, stripped of her practiced elegance. You don't understand, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It never does it? Betrayal always feels manageable until it starts to rot everything it touches. She took a step closer, reaching for my arm. We can fix this. I'll leave him. I'll come back home. Please. For a brief moment, the old ache stirred in me, the part that still remembered the woman who'd once laughed at my bad jokes, who'd held my hand through lean years. But then I remembered the sound of her voice whispering Calder's name. You already left home, Evelyn, I said quietly. You just forgot to take your lies with you. The doorbell rang before she could respond. Arden stood there, calm, composed, holding a folder of her own. Her eyes flicked between us, her expression unreadable. Mom, she said softly, I think it's time you faced the truth. Evelyn's face crumpled. Arden, please. Don't. Arden's tone was sharper now. You don't get to use my name to justify what you did. Or his. She turned to me. Dad, it's done. I filed for divorce. The silence that followed was surgical, it cut clean through the air. Evelyn's body trembled, but no tears came. She'd run out of them long ago. I stepped forward, setting my own folder on the table beside hers. "This," I said, tapping the cover, "goes to my attorney tomorrow. The evidence of your affair, the financial transfers, the attempt to manipulate company assets, all of it. After that, you and Calder can deal with the consequences on your own." Evelyn's voice came out a whisper. "You're really doing this?" "No, Evelyn," I said, meeting her eyes one last time. "You did this." She turned to Arden, perhaps hoping for a last trace of sympathy. But my daughter's gaze was cold steel. "You taught me to tell the truth, Mom," she said. "And now I finally am." Evelyn's lips trembled, but she didn't speak again. She left the house quietly, her heels clicking softer this time, a hollow echo of the woman she once pretended to be. That evening, I sat by the window watching dusk settle over the neighborhood. The same sun that had witnessed her betrayal was now setting on her lies. No shouting. No revenge. Just silence, the clean kind that follows when justice starts to breathe. Tomorrow, the papers would go public. And the names Evelyn Graves and Calder Voss would be spoken in courtrooms, not dinner tables. For the first time in months, I slept without dreaming. 6 months passed before I realized I was breathing normally again. The mornings no longer began with dread or end with exhaustion. The silence in the house was no longer heavy, it was honest. I'd forgotten what that sounded like. The divorce had gone through faster than expected. My attorney, Peter Halden, handled it with surgical precision. Once the recordings and transfers were presented, Evelyn's legal team didn't stand a chance. The judge ruled the affair and the attempted asset manipulation as premeditated fraud within marital trust. Evelyn lost everything: the accounts, the house, the car. The last time I saw her was outside the courthouse on a cold morning in January. She stood on the steps, coat wrapped tight, staring at the ground like a woman who'd run out of places to go. When our eyes met, there was no anger, only the quiet recognition of two people who'd buried something too deep to dig back up. "I never meant for it to end like this," she said. "Neither did I answered. "But sometimes endings are the only honest part of a story." She nodded once, then turned away. That was the last time I spoke to Evelyn Graves. Calder Voss didn't fare much better. The state bar's hearing confirmed the misuse of client trust funds. His license was revoked, his firm dissolved, and his name became a cautionary tale whispered in legal circles. I heard he moved to Nevada, trying to rebuild under a different name. But reputation, once cracked, doesn't hold the same weight. Arden, though, she amazed me. She moved out of the house she'd shared with Calder and opened a small counseling practice in downtown Cedar Falls. The sign above the door read, "Arden Dorn Therapy, Rebuilding After Betrayal." She told me it wasn't just for others. It was for herself, too. We have dinner every Sunday now. Sometimes we talk about work, sometimes about her plans to travel, but mostly we sit in quiet understanding. We've both been burned by the same fire, and somehow, that's made us stronger. The company, Dorn Construction, is thriving again. The workers know the story, at least the broad strokes, but they treat me with the quiet respect of men who've seen their boss walk through hell and come out standing taller. Business doubled after the case went public. Maybe people trust a man who refuses to hide the truth. One evening, I walked through the house alone, tracing my fingers along the banister I'd carved years ago. I thought about the irony, how a builder had to watch everything he loved collapse before remembering how to build again. At the window, the same one where Evelyn once smiled in the reflection, I caught my own face in the glass, older, lined, but alive. I raised my glass of bourbon to that reflection and said quietly, "To what's left and to what's real." For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt rebuilt. Evelyn was right about one thing. I used to believe she loved me. But belief isn't love. Love tells the truth even when it hurts. And as for me, I finally learned the most important lesson of all. You can lose everything and still win back your peace. Because truth, once uncovered, doesn't destroy you. It sets you free.